if 220 out of 500 voters, so out of 500 voters surveyed said that they would vote for the incumbent, then how many votes would the incumbent expect out of 400,000 voters in the state? Incumbent is simply the presiding president or governor or whosoever post. So the sitting governor, for example, in Nigeria, our incumbent presently is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So that's the new incumbent. So if the question says if 220 out of 500 voters surveyed said that they will vote for the incumbent, so what you want to check is the value of the fraction of people out of the surveyed voters that will vote for the incumbent. So what I want to calculate is voters, voters is equal to 500. That's the total voters that we saw, that we asked the question. That's what survey is all about. So this is the total number of voters. Why voters that will vote for the incumbent? 220. So what I want to find is I want to find the fraction of voters that will vote for the incumbent. When I get the fraction of voters that will vote for the incumbent, I'll multiply it by the total number of votes they will have in that election. Then I can get the number of votes that the incumbent is going to have in that election. What do I mean? So fraction of voters voting the incumbent. I hope my handwriting is correct. All right, so how do I get the fraction of voters voting for the incumbent? I'll get the total number of voters that said they will vote for the incumbent divided by the total number of voters that took the survey. So I'll say voters that voted, or let me say, to just make everything short, voters incumbents divided by voters. So total voters that were surveyed were 500. Why the voters that agreed to vote for the incumbent were 220? So I have 220 divided by 500. So this is the fraction of voters that are voting for the incumbent. So how do I get this? This can take out this. And from here, 2 is common, 2 is common. I have 25 here. And I have 11 here. So which means the fraction of voters voting for the incumbent is 11 over 25. So now what I have to calculate is the total number of votes the incumbent is going to have in that election. Now, first thing is the number of votes in that election is 400,000, which I got from the question. The total number of votes 400,000. So now for me to get the number of votes the incumbent is going to get from this total number of votes, I'm simply going to use this fraction I calculated here, which is 11 over 25. So what I'm going to do is I'll multiply the fraction of the votes the incumbent is going to get from the voters multiplied by the total number of votes. So I can say the votes that the incumbent is going to get in that particular election will be 11 over 25 multiplied by 400,000. So for me to do this, I can divide this by this. Here, I have here probably, let's say 8, 0, okay, so I'll have 11 times. I'm dividing by 5 rather, so 5 is here, and here I have 8,000. If I divide onwards, I'll have 16,000. I'll multiply 16,000 by 11, I'll have 176,000. So which means the total number of votes that the incumbent is going to get from this total number of votes here will be 176,000 people, which is option 3. How do I get it again? Don't forget, I just did a quick multiplication, 25 and 400,000. I got 16,000 and I multiplied this by 11. So I have 11 times 16,000, 276,000 voters. So in that particular election, the incumbent is going to get a total of 276,000 voters. I hope that is clear. If you have any question on this again, don't forget you can drop it on chat section rather, so that when we are open for questions, we can refer to them. So right before we move to the next topic, we take a quick example so you can see what problems questions can be addressed, how they can be solved, and how they can be tackled. So when you meet them in your exam questions, depending on the case, probably foundational exams or lab questions, then you know how to address them. All right, so we'll be taking this study example. I hope you guys are following me, so you guys can take maximum advantage of these classes. Right. So the question says the price of the Kida cheese is $2.12 per pound. The price of a Monterey Jack seed Jack cheese is $2.34 per pound. If Harrison buys 1.5 pounds of Cheddar and 1 pound of Montreal Jack, on 1 pound of Montreal Jack, how much will he spend in all? So, all right, the pack of this is equal to $2.12. Why the price of 2.34 per dollar? So he buys 1.15 pound, this is per pound. Don't forget the question. Made it clear that this is per pound. So the question says he buys 1.5 pound of this and he buys 1 pound of this. So how much did he spend in total? So first thing is I want to calculate how much he spent on Kida, whatever the pronunciation is here. So I want to calculate how much he spent on it, and also I'll calculate how much he spent on the Montreal Jack, and I add it together. So the amount spending on this will be equal to, because he's buying 1.5 pound of this, I'll say 1.5 multiplied by 2.12. So which means the total amount spent on Kida is 1.5 times 2.12. So I'll say the amount spent on Kida is equal to this should be $3.18 after multiplying 1.5 times 2.12. Right, you should get 3.18. So we have the amount to spend on Kida as 3.18. So the amount to spend on Montreal Jack, since he bought only 1 pound rather, would be 2.34. How did I get that? I simply multiplied 2.34 times 1, which is going to give me 2.34. So the total amount spent will be 3.18 plus 2.34. How do I get that? Amount spent on Kida plus amount spent on Montreal Jack. So adding this together, I should have 4.52 rather, $4.52. So the amount is spent on both Montreal Jack and Kida, which is 1.5 pound of 1.5 pound of Kida, and then 1 pound of Montreal Jack is $4.52, which is option D. I hope you guys understand how I did all of this. I calculated the amount to spend on Kida first, and then the total amount to spend on the Montreal Jack, and then added it together to get $4.52. So this are ways of solving both problem questions. So we have our answer is $4.52, which matches option D. All right, so I believe with these examples and the ones done in the last class, if you need the last class, you can do well. I think there was a mistake in the calculation of this. So this should be 5.52 rather. So this is 2.34. This should be 5.52. So I think in the question there's no options there. Option D should be 5.52, not 4.52. Probably it was a typography error or something. So the answer to this is 5.52. So when you add 3.18 plus 2.34, you should have $5.52. So the total amount to spend was $5.52. I think that was very clear. So from here, we'll be moving on to another topic. If you have any questions whatsoever on what problem so far, you can write them down, and then when it comes to section for asking questions, you can bring them up. All right. So we'll be moving to another question, another topic, right? So topic will be percentage errors. So so say percentage error. So when we are talking about percentage error, what do you mean? Simply the amount of deficiency or calculated in percentage of an estimated value to an actual value. What do I mean? Probably when you're talking about estimates, that's when we need the percentage error. Probably I'm estimating before I get to from here to, let me say I'm moving from here to Abuja X by plane. I'm estimating it will be 25 minutes, and at the end of the day, it takes 30 minutes. The percentage error is simply the error or the difference between the actual value and the estimated time calculated in percentage. So that's percentage error. Simply the difference in an estimated value and actual value calculated in percentage. All right. So when we're talking about percentage error, don't forget I said all these classes will be based on calculations and formulas. So I said formula for percentage error will be equal to absolute error over estimated or expected value. So we are dealing with percentage, it's going to be 100 over 1. So here is absolute error, formula for percentage error, absolute error over expected, sorry, estimated expected value times 100 over 1. So how do we get our absolute error? Absolute error is simply calculated by subtracting the actual value from the estimated value, or as the case may be, estimated value from actual value, depending on which is higher. So I can say absolute error is equal to actual value minus estimated value. So this is estimated value. I just shortened it. All right. So absolute error is actual value minus estimated value, but it's not always fixed. Depending on which is higher, it can also be estimated value minus actual value. So whichever way it is, that's your absolute error. So what we'll be doing here is we have percentage error. Here is anytime we have a question, check from the question which is the actual value, the absolute, and the expected. Rather, find out from the question which is the actual value and then which is the estimated value. We subtract it to get the absolute error. And divide it by the expected value and multiply it by 100 to get our percentage error. So we'll be taking an example real quick. So from the first example, the question says it was estimated that LeBron James would score 35 points during a game. He actually scored 28. Find your percentage error. So the question says LeBron James would score 35 points. So it was estimated that LeBron James, so which means our estimated value is 35 points. And then in the actual game, which is the actual value, he scored 25 points. That's when after the game ended, he scored 28 points. So what we want to find here is the percentage error. So we have to find the percentage error of the estimation. So how do we do this? Don't forget, I said percentage error still here on the board. Absolute error divided by estimated value times 100 over 1. So how do I get my absolute error? I say, which is higher, my estimated value is higher. So I say 35 minus 28. My absolute error is equal to 35 minus 28. Right, so that's how to get my absolute error. So I see my absolute error. So I'll just be replacing this absolute error with AE. So when you see A, you know it's absolute error. So I have AE, 35 minus 28. So this is 7. So which means my absolute error is 7 points. Simply, absolute error is simply the difference between the actual value and then the estimated value. So the difference is 7 points. I have 7 points as my actual value. So now for me to calculate percentage error, I'll say absolute error, which is 7, divided by the estimated value, which is 35, times 100 over 1. So here I can say this 7 can go here 1, and 7 can go here 5. So I have 100 divided by 5, which is going to give me 20. Don't forget, percentage error is calculated in percent. I have my answer as 20%, so which means the percentage error of the estimation is 20%. So which correlates with option D. So first thing is check, you point out from the question the estimated value, from the question the actual value. Then from those two values you get the difference to get the absolute error. Then you can put into a formula which is this absolute error over estimated value times 100 over 1. So here we can take another question real quick. So second question says you estimate that you sent 135 texts last week, but when you got the bill, it was actually 108. So you said you estimated that you got 135 texts. Don't forget, estimated value is 135 texts. And then when you got it, rather, text, and when you got your mail, the actual value was 108 text. So which means this is my estimated value and this is my actual value. So for me to get my absolute error, which is AE, I'm going to say, don't forget absolute error is the difference between the estimated value and the actual value. So I say 135 minus 108. So yeah, I have 135 minus 108. I have 27 text. So the difference between his estimate and the actual test he received was 27 texts. So I have this as my absolute error. So for me to get percentage error, don't forget absolute error 27 divided by the estimated value. What is my estimated value? My estimated value is 135 times 100 over 1. Right. So for me to get this, I can divide this 27 by this. I say 27 can go here 1,